March 3rd, 2017. Do you guys remember that day? I'm sure many of the people watching this video remember that day pretty vividly, actually. That was the day Breath of the Wild released. Back when I was just a sophomore in college, it really does feel like a lifetime ago. I remember watching the Switch presentation trailer for the game all those years ago and thinking, wow, a Legend of Zelda with actual voice acting. Damn how times have changed. Something about that trailer must have resonated with a lot of people, because looking back at that trailer, it's got a resounding 28 million views. That's no joke for a Nintendo game, even if it's one of their first-party experiences. The way it showcased all the different landscapes you were going to be exploring, the familiar music, the epic voiceover, the gameplay, the art style, everything culminated together to make one of the most beautiful trailers I've seen to this very day, and the hype for Breath of the Wild was through the roof from that day forward. I remember when I finally went and picked up the game at my local GameStop and went back to my dorm room to play it that same night, and I remember that first night in the Great Plateau, finally getting my paraglider and jumping off that tower into the vast open world that awaited me to explore to its deepest depths. Shout out to the Wii U version, by the way. When I got tired, I played for a couple extra hours in my bed in the dark with that big-ass gamepad staring me in the face, even though I should have been sleeping. Good times. And now, as I play the game today, 4 years removed from college, having graduated, gotten a job, left it, starting something new, starting my YouTube channel, and so many other things that have happened in my life, I look back on this game rather fondly. There are still a couple of changes here and there to the Zelda formula that I didn't particularly enjoy, but I guess that's what this video's going to be about. The things that I liked and didn't like about Breath of the Wild, and my hopes for Tears of the Kingdom moving forward, which is coming in T-minus 9 days at the time of me voicing this script. Keep in mind that I have watched absolutely no footage of Tears of the Kingdom at all, so I know literally nothing about the game except its title, and I plan to keep it that way until the game's release. So, if you're worried about spoilers for Tears of the Kingdom in this video, then you have nothing to be worried about. With that, let's take one last look together at The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. A lot of people use the term open world pretty popularly when referring to video games these days, and in 2017, I feel like that was even more true. That was the year of Mass Effect Andromeda, Assassin's Creed Origins, Destiny 2, Horizon Zero Dawn, and so many other takes on the open world formula, but none of them really hit the same as Breath of the Wild did. You see, Breath of the Wild did something that no other game at the time had thought to do. And one of the greatest things Breath of the Wild had accomplished was its interpretation of towers. You've seen these before with Assassin's Creed, for example. Remember those waypoints on the map you'd climb to the top of and the whole camera spins around and then you jump off the top of it into a haystack? Yeah, that's basically what Breath of the Wild's towers are, just 10 times better. You see, towers in Breath of the Wild don't just mark a bunch of objectives on your map for you to arbitrarily head to in a linear fashion like a train on tracks. What it does do is give you a general sense of the topography of that specific region so that you're not flying completely blind within it. Landmarks and points of interest, though, those you'll have to find on your own, by doing what Breath of the Wild does best: exploring. What I really personally enjoy about the towers, though, is how climbing to the top of each of them is like solving a puzzle piece. With one tower near Hyrule Castle, there are guardians shooting lasers at you from all sides of it as you climb to the top, so you have to narrowly avoid lasers as you climb. With Tabantha Tower, it's surrounded by this calamity goop, so you have to figure out a way to get some height before climbing your way up, because simply trying to climb from the base of it isn't going to work. So while the actual climbing of the tower itself may be the same, because structurally every tower is literally the same asset, The way in which you approach climbing each and every tower is different every time, so it never feels like the same experience. And by successfully climbing to the top of each tower, you're getting rewarded by slowly getting your map filled out little by little. And it becomes so addicting that all of a sudden, you've set an arbitrary objective for yourself like, I want to get all the towers so I unlock my map fully before moving forward with the game. And that's something that you can totally do if that suits your fancy. I know I got addicted to tower climbing when I first played Breath of the Wild, and hell, I still do to this day. But the towers don't just serve a mechanical purpose like most games do. No, they also serve a functional purpose as well. Typically, the first thing you want to do within Breath of the Wild whenever you're in a new region is head toward the tower. Yes, revealing a portion of your map is nice, but your true purpose should be getting to a high vantage point to get the lay of the land. And that's exactly the functional purpose that these towers serve. I can't tell you how many times I'd be looking for a shrine or enemy camp so that I could obtain some new weaponry, when all I needed to do was head to the nearest tower to survey the landscape, and I'd find what I was looking for in seconds. The game doesn't need to give me some arbitrary marker with an indicator telling me how close I am to an enemy camp or shrine. That's no fun, and honestly, in a way, the game is insulting your intelligence. If anything, let me find that enemy camp or shrine on my own. Just give me the tools, in this case the tower, to do so. And while you're on your way to that grand old tower in the distance, you'll just by circumstance happen upon other points of interest, like a horse stable, a mini-boss, a new shrine puzzle, or any number of things to keep you distracted while you explore Breath of the Wild's world. And isn't that what exploration's all about? Overall, Breath of the Wild just does such a great job at giving the player freedom to do whatever they want, while also giving the player subtle hints at objectives to accomplish within its world to give you a sense of forward progress, while also making you feel like you accomplished those goals all on your own. And that is a very hard balance to achieve. Honestly, the only way to describe this kind of open-world design is genius, and it's no wonder that Breath of the Wild was so praised for its sense of open-world exploration back in the day. My only concern with Tears of the Kingdom then is, well, how do you reinvent this formula? Obviously, doing the same thing they did with Breath of the Wild and its towers won't really have the same charm it once did because, well, we've already been down that road. Sure, they could present the towers with new puzzles to solve in order to climb them and make things a bit different in that regard, but for some reason, I don't think that's what they did, because if it took them 6 years to do all that, then something must be wrong with their development team. Honestly, I'm very excited to see how they approach this problem and in what way they're going to surprise us, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, all of this praise for Breath of the Wild, sheesh, do I think it's a perfect game? Not at all. There are many things this game does right, but there are also a few things it gets wrong. One of those things being the weapon durability system. My God. I think this may be the worst thing introduced in the entirety of the Zelda series. There are a few things that I do like about the system though, like how it forces me to use weapons I would never otherwise use, and the sheer amount of weaponry in this game is staggering. However, it's just a shame that even when you take a liking to certain weapons within the game, they're only ever around long enough to use for 1 or 2 encounters before they shatter into a million pieces. Then there's the fact that you're only able to hold a certain amount of weapons at one time, and a lot of the rewards and chests you'll find hidden around the world contain, you guessed it, more weapons, which most of the time you won't be able to pick up because your weapon inventory is full, and so it's just like, ugh. I don't know, but this system really got on my nerves. It also kind of sours the experience when you do a big ol' side quest for something, and all you get for it is a weapon that's probably going to break in the next hour of playtime. Or you'll defeat a big boss and you'll get this great bow that shoots 3 arrows at a time until… it broke. This problem didn't really exist in previous Zelda games because you knew that whatever item you were going to receive or upgrade you were going to get was permanent. For God's sake, even the Master Sword in this game can break. Are you kidding me? This is the Master Sword we're talking about, and has the power to repel evil, defeat Ganondorf, and it just broke. At least the Master Sword is semi-permanent, as it'll come back after a certain period of time, so let's give the devs some credit there. I just really hope this system is improved on and has some overhauls here and there, because I feel that it certainly needs it. And make the Master Sword a permanent weapon. It's the Master Sword, for God's sakes. And now for another thing I'd like for them to improve on. The Divine Beasts. Now don't get me wrong, these were really cool to look at in Breath of the Wild, but I have to say, actually playing through them was probably the worst part of Breath of the Wild for me. For one, there's only 4 main dungeons that you go through throughout the entire game, and it's one of the main objectives you need to accomplish. And for a game that's as massive as Breath of the Wild, having only 4 dungeons, or Divine Beasts in this case, for you to go through is a bit lackluster. Pair that with the fact that each of the Divine Beasts' interiors plays out extremely similarly. Go find these terminals spread throughout this animal-shaped structure, and then fight a copy-paste boss 4 different times, please and thank you. Sure, there were a few cool ideas here and there, like the fact that you could rotate them, and some of the ways you had to get to some of the terminals were interesting puzzles to solve, but other than that, there's not much to praise them for. At least the process to enter each Divine Beast is unique and different. I'll give them that, but think back to Ocarina of Time. Want to know how many dungeons were in that game? 12. I understand that Breath of the Wild had much more than the Divine Beasts to explore and this and that, but at the end of the day, the main objective of your journey are the Divine Beasts, and I want them to be more thought out this time in Tears of the Kingdom, rather than feeling like an afterthought. Now that's not to say I think they'll reuse the Divine Beasts as dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom, but you get what I mean. I want the developers to bring back traditional dungeons like in the older Zeldas, because I have to say, I really miss them. Speaking of missing things, where did the tools and magic bar go? Seriously, the magic bar has been missing since Wind Waker, and tools have been gone, well, since Breath of the Wild, but seriously, bring these back. I miss all the different tools you could utilize when in combat or even when trying to figure out a puzzle. The Korok leaf, the grappling hook, the boomerang, the ball and chain. Well, maybe don't bring back that one. Or whatever this is. Anyway, you get the point. Sure, Magnesis and all the other different runes are really cool too, and the variety of different ways you can use those runes to interact with the environment is interesting, but in my mind, it'll never replace that familiar feeling when you get halfway through a dungeon and bum bum blah. And also, fairies. No, not the ones that fly around and heal you. The ones in Majora's Mask that give you unique power-ups if you collect all the ones hidden around the 4 dungeons? That's another one I would love to see back. They don't even gotta be fairies, just anything that you can collect for a cool power-up. And don't say Korok seeds, cause, God, those don't count. Now, I don't really have too much to say about these within Breath of the Wild, other than that I thought they were really cool. Having to find each and every one of them was like a scavenger hunt, and when you did finally find them, the puzzles within each varied so much it was like a whole new minigame each time you entered one. And sometimes I'd even be in a shrine and wouldn't even solve it the intended way because the intended way was pissing me off. I'm looking at you, Wii U gyroscope controls. Still, having 120 shrines to complete and find does seem a bit excessive in retrospect, so I do hope that with Tears of the Kingdom, they come up with a new way to keep us enraptured in the world of Hyrule. Maybe this time around they could have floating islands dispersed around the land to explore a la Skyward Sword? I think that could be a nice touch and a good substitute for what shrines have been. Even thinking back to Wind Waker, each island was a shrine of some sort. You'd sail to an island, and there'd be some sort of puzzle you have to solve in order to receive some sort of reward. So again, I hope they reiterate on the shrine formula and make something unique to experience within Tears of the Kingdom, rather than just giving us more shrines to go through. I think the last thing I want to talk about within this retrospective is Calamity Ganon. As a villain, Calamity Ganon served his purpose. You could see him constantly encircling Hyrule Castle, a constant reminder of the end goal of your journey. He's what you're working toward to defeat, why you're going through the Divine Beasts, why you're finishing each and every shrine, to get stronger and save Zelda. And while I do think that the final battle does serve as a great conclusion to your journey, I can't help but think that Ganondorf himself, or some version of him, would have served as a more compelling villain. Because when you think about it, Calamity Ganon doesn't have any sort of substance as an antagonist other than
he's a very, very bad man.
I mean, really, it's just this monstrous glob of goop you end up facing. Thinking back to Wind Waker, Ganondorf was such a badass villain. He smacks Link around your first encounter with him, and the final battle with him in the ruined underwater Hyrule feels like peak storytelling. He's using dual blades guarding your ass at every turn until you counter him last second and… Sorry. Even Ocarina of Time does this better with him on the piano, playing an ominous tune as you make your way up the castle steps. Then you're playing ping pong with him in the castle until you go, Sayak! Again, sorry. I just think Breath of the Wild could use more of that antagonistic flair, and I'm hoping Tears of the Kingdom can remedy that. And from what little I've seen of it, it does seem to be doing just that. In conclusion, Breath of the Wild was really a breath of fresh air for me back in 2017. It reminded me of why I enjoy video games as an art form so much, and I'm hoping that Tears of the Kingdom can do the same for me in 2023. And it feels a bit sad to have to say goodbye to it after playing the game so many different times in all these years, but for some reason, I have a feeling I'll be right at home with the sequel. Hell, somebody's gotta be there to save Zelda, right, Link? With that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't be afraid to hit that like button, dislike it if you disliked it, and subscribe for more Tears of the Kingdom in the very near future. Otherwise, Link's gonna come sayak your ass.